Hello everyone. I share real stories that I know and I'm sure you will like them. Enjoy watching and don't forget to like.
I caught the new pool guy staring, and I didn't stop him. I should have. I should have looked away, said something, anything. But I didn't. I just stood there, watching him watch me. And something about that moment, quiet and too long, unlocked something I didn't know was still there. My name is Erin. I'm 45. I've been married for 21 years. And for most of those years, I knew exactly who I was. Wife. Mother. Volunteer. The woman who organized the school bake sale, who always sent thank you cards before the weekend ended, who kept track of everyone's dentist appointments and made meatloaf from scratch. Our daughters are grown now, both in different states. The house that once echoed with noise is now quiet enough to hear the hum of the refrigerator. Greg, my husband, sells insurance. He leaves early, comes home late, falls asleep in front of the television with one hand in a bag of chips. He's a good man. Honest. Predictable. The kind who always replaces the batteries in the smoke detectors before they beep. But lately, it feels like we're living next to each other, not with each other. The only time we touch is when we pass each other in the hallway. The only time he really looks at me is when he asks where his phone charger is. I'm not angry. Just hollow. Like I'm waiting for something I can't name. The pool had been out of commission for nearly 2 years. Greg finally called someone to repair it. He found a company online and scheduled the weekly service. Said it was time we made use of the backyard again. Said it would feel like a little escape. But I wasn't expecting him. His name was Dylan. The first time I saw him, he was stepping out of the white company van, slinging a black toolbox from the back. He was younger than I expected. Mid to late 20s. Tan, athletic build, sun-streaked hair tucked under a backwards baseball cap. But it wasn't just how he looked. It was how he moved. Easy. Unbothered. Comfortable in the space around him. He walked through the side gate like he'd done it 100 times, but with enough pause that I could tell he was taking it all in. I was in the kitchen when I heard the gate squeak open. I looked up through the glass. He glanced toward the window and nodded once, then got to work. No awkward wave. No forced greeting. Just presence. I opened the sliding door and stepped onto the patio. "Hi there," I said, hugging my cardigan a little closer. He looked up. Smiled. "Hey, Dylan. I'm with Clearwater Pools. Here to check the filtration and chemical balance." I nodded. "Great. Let me know if you need anything." "Will do," he said. And then he looked at me. Really looked. Not in a way that was inappropriate. Not like a stare. Just an observation. As if I were something curious. A question he hadn't figured out yet. Then he turned and knelt by the filter. It should have ended there. But it didn't. The next few visits were quiet. Professional. He came around the same time each week, let himself into the backyard like he was told to. I started noticing the rhythm of it. Tuesdays, 10:15. He always wore the same style of shirt, gray, loose, a little faded around the sleeves. I told myself I wasn't paying attention. But I was. I stayed in the kitchen longer on those mornings. Pretended to wipe down counters that were already clean. Refold towels. Poured fresh coffee just to have an excuse to be near the window. And each time I glanced out, I caught him. Not always looking, but aware. Like he knew I was there, just out of frame. Then came the morning I truly caught him. I had just stepped out of the shower. I was in a robe, towel around my shoulders, hair wet. I padded into the kitchen, not expecting anything, and there he was. Through the glass. Looking up from the skimmer, gaze fixed on the door. On me. Our eyes locked. Neither of us moved. I could have turned away. I could have let the curtain fall. But I didn't. I tightened the robe around my waist. And I stood there. The air between us, separated by glass, thickened. Just for a moment. Then he looked back down at the water. Kept working. That night, Greg didn't notice the wine I had opened. Or the way I'd changed out the candles in the dining room. He ate quickly, said he had an early conference call, kissed the top of my head, and fell asleep on the couch. I watched him, thinking how strange it is to sleep beside someone for years and still feel like strangers. A week later, I was watering the potted plants when I heard the gate click. I didn't look up right away. "Morning," he said. I turned. He was smiling, water test kit in hand. "Back again," I said, trying not to smile too obviously. "Can't stay away," he said. And I could tell by the way he said it, he wasn't talking about the pool. I handed him a bottle of water. Our fingers brushed. His thumb lingered just a fraction longer than it should have. We both noticed. Neither of us mentioned it. He worked in silence that day. But every few minutes, he looked up. And I was already looking back. I found myself finding excuses to be outside. Rearranging furniture. Adjusting cushions that didn't need it. He finished and packed up. But instead of leaving, he paused by the gate. "Anything else you need, Mrs. Carter?" He said it carefully, slowly, like the name tasted different now. I shook my head. "No. Thank you, Dylan." He didn't move. "You ever feel like someone sees you before you see yourself?" he asked. I froze. Then, as if realizing he'd said too much, he nodded once and walked out. I stood there, hand still on the armrest of the patio chair, heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with fear. And I thought, this isn't about him. It's about me. The next morning, I stood at the kitchen window with a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. Greg was still asleep on the couch. The TV had looped into static sometime during the night. I didn't turn it off. I didn't cover him with a blanket. I just stood there, watching the steam from my cup vanish slowly into nothing. Outside, the sky was overcast. The kind of gray that presses down, not with storm, but with silence. The lounge chair by the pool still held the towel I had left the day before. And near the fence, there was a tiny piece of white, the cap from Dylan's test kit. He'd forgotten it. Or maybe left it on purpose. Like a breadcrumb. I hadn't slept well. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the way he looked at me just before leaving. Like he knew exactly what he'd said. "You ever feel like someone sees you before you see yourself?" Yes, I had. That was the problem. Dylan didn't come that week. Or the one after. But I still looked for him. I walked barefoot through the backyard more often than I needed to. Reorganized the patio furniture. Cut fresh lemons just to fill a pitcher I didn't pour from. Greg was in and out, swamped with quarter-end reports. We passed each other like trains. Parallel and predictable. Then, one Thursday afternoon, the phone rang. "Hey," said a voice. Quiet. Familiar. My throat tightened. I wasn't supposed to call, Dylan said. But I left something behind. Thought I'd swing by tomorrow to grab it. I said nothing for a moment. Then, "I'll be here." I could have told Greg. Could have asked him to stay home. I didn't. Friday morning came. I spent too long choosing a dress that looked casual but not careless. I brushed my hair twice. Not for him. That's what I told myself. He arrived around 10:30. Knocked on the gate instead of walking in. I met him there. He was different. Not the technician. Not the hired help. Just a man. Standing under the sun. Looking at me like the question between us still hadn't been answered. He picked up the cap, turned it over in his hand. "I think I left more than this," he said. I exhaled slowly. My hand grazed the metal of the patio railing. "You shouldn't be here," I said. He nodded. "I know." We stood like that in the quiet. No wind. No birds. Just breath and space. Then he stepped closer. Not enough to touch, but close enough to make my body remember what it was like to be wanted. His voice dropped. "Tell me to go." I didn't. I couldn't. We didn't kiss. We didn't touch. But something passed between us. Heavy. Unmistakable. A betrayal that lived entirely in the things we didn't do. When he left, he didn't say goodbye. And I stood there, bare feet on warm concrete, heart pounding like I'd just run miles. That weekend, Greg asked if I wanted to go to dinner. I said yes, too quickly. Guilt makes you perform. I wore lipstick. He didn't notice. We went to a place with cloth napkins and soft jazz. I smiled through 3 courses, nodded at stories I'd heard before. Then he pulled out his phone and placed it face down on the table. I got an email from the service company, he said. I froze. They reassigned Dylan. Said something about boundaries being crossed. He looked at me. But not like before. Not with distance. With knowing. Did something happen? My hands were in my lap. I clenched them to hide the tremble. No, I said. He didn't blink. Are you sure? I swallowed. We didn't. Nothing happened. Greg nodded. Slowly, methodically. Like a man running numbers in his head. But you wanted it to. I couldn't answer. He picked up his fork. Ate in silence. We drove home with the windows down. The next morning, his suitcase was by the door. Greg didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He just said, I don't know who you are anymore, but I know I'm not part of it. Then he was gone. The pool is clean now. Clear. Still. I sit by it sometimes with a book I don't read. Dylan hasn't come back. He never called again. Maybe he knew the moment had passed. Maybe he knew it never should have happened at all. Sometimes, I still stand at the window in the mornings, looking out, not for anyone, just at the water, at the space, at the version of myself I found in a reflection I can't hold on to. He left the suitcase. I left the silence.